This time you're getting three for the price of one because this is kind of a reactionary review, kind of a sci-fi pulsi, and kind of a character profile all wrapped up into one video. Now this is something I've been wanting to do for years, but I just kind of forgot about it until the present. Now, I've been on a bit of a StarCraft kick lately, so I went back and someone had done a compilation of all the cinematics, all the briefings, and all of the in-mission dialogue from StarCraft Remastered. So I rewatched that, and then I watched the cinematics from Wings of Liberty, and I've been replaying Heart of the Swarm. And I'll be replaying Legacy of the Void once I'm done that. And about an hour into Heart of the Swarm, it all came back to me why this irritated me so much previously, and why I was going to do a video ranting about it. Especially having just watched all the cutscenes from Brood War and the original StarCraft. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't hate StarCraft 2. I have some issues with it. I think the campaigns are really fun. I enjoy all the kind of in-between stuff where you can do bonus missions and customize your army and stuff like that. But I don't think anyone would argue that the writing has in some ways taken a hit. Granted, there's a lot more content now than there used to be. There's more cinematics, there's more dialogue, there's more kind of conversations you can have on the side. But I just don't think it's up to the same quality that we got in Brood War. I think it also lost a lot of the space opera qualities that a lot of people appreciated about the original. And in no way is this more, I think, prevalent than in how they decided to deal with the character of Kerrigan in StarCraft 2, particularly in Heart of the Swarm. So to start off with, let's talk about her relationship with Jim Raynor. Now, I was very young when I played StarCraft for the first time. I think I was only 12 or something, so I wasn't the best at reading social cues, but I never really got the impression that Kerrigan and Jim Raynor were in a relationship. There was like one, I guess, little hint where he was eyeing her up, but then again, Kerrigan's an attractive redhead in a skin-tight ghost outfit, so you can't really blame him. And then he gets upset when she dies, and he calls her darling a couple times, which is what somebody with his accent and manner of speaking would probably call any woman, let alone an attractive one. And that's about it. In Brood War in particular, we get the impression that Jim deeply despises Kerrigan, that he wants to kill her, that he thinks that she's a monster and a butcher. If we look at the last interaction they have in StarCraft 1 Brood War, he says, I'm going to be the man who kills you someday, whether it's me and my army or just me personally, I'm going to come and get you. And yet, that all is kind of thrown out, and Jim is now hopelessly in love with Kerrigan. She's the love of his life. He's depressed because she's become the Queen of Blades. And I just don't really think you saw much of that being foreshadowed at all in StarCraft 1. And they decided to make their relationship like the overarching story arc of all of StarCraft 2. Like, it's a big thing in Wings of Liberty, and it's the entire plot of Heart of the Swarm. And to me, it's like they took one of the least developed, least interesting aspects of the first game and just said, okay, we're going to make this an epic romance story. And I, generally speaking, like romantic things, but it's just so forced. And it's just so unnecessary. And it just kind of separates it, I think, both tonally and in terms of plot from the first game. The other aspect of it is it really ruins Kerrigan's character. I mean, it ruins Jim's character, but it ruins Kerrigan's character even more. Kerrigan was a really good villain in Brood War. She successfully manipulated everybody multiple times against one another, manipulated the UED to fight the Dominion, manipulated the Dominion and Jim and the Protoss to help her against the UED, outmaneuvered the Dark Templar by corrupting Razagul, got them to kill Eldaris. She had so many schemes and so many 4D chess plans, pretty much all of which came to fruition. And one of kind of her characteristics is she felt absolutely no guilt about it. She was able to just lie to people's faces like it was nothing. But at the same time, she could be very charming. She could tell people with a straight face, yeah, I'm going to back you up on that one. She could try to provide a rationalization for why it was in her self interest to work with them and then later backstab them. She was just someone who is extremely effective at playing the Game of Thrones, of manipulating people, of using force when necessary, of using diplomacy when necessary, of using espionage when necessary. And by the end of Brood War, she had basically gotten all her opponents to destroy one another and left her in a position where, as she called herself, the Queen Bitch of the Universe. And it is kind of a very interesting piece of writing that she started out as kind of a major supporting character in the Terran campaign, and by the end of Brood War, she became the big bad. The big bad wasn't the Overmind, it wasn't Tassadar, it wasn't Zeratul, it wasn't even Arcturus Minx. It was Kerrigan, this ghost who went through absolute hell and came out of it a psychopathic monster. And now in Heart of the Swarm, her motivation isn't that she's evil and she wants to take over the universe, but that she's like an angsty teenage girl who wants to save the love of her life, and she wants the Zerg to be free. And we have, I think, the cringiest single moment in all of StarCraft in Heart of the Swarm, where she complains about the 6 billion Zerg. I forget who she's talking to, if it was Manx or Raynor or the Protoss. I think it was the Protoss, where, that one person she captures, and she's like, you killed 6 Gorillion Zerg. It's, my people suffered so much at the hands of the Protoss. The Zerg were good boys. They didn't do nothing. It wasn't their fault that they got wiped out, that they started a war with the Protoss and the Terrans and basically tried to assimilate and kill everybody. They were these helpless victims of the evil Protoss and the evil Confederacy. And it's all the Zerg died, even though she later on says when they're going to lose millions of Zerg trying to take Core Hall, oh, it doesn't matter, we're the Swarm, we're endless. So, I mean, do the Zerg lives matter, or do they not? Do Zerg lives matter, or do Zerg lives not matter? Because if you think about it, the only real sentient Zerg, as far as I can determine, are the Cerebrits, which are all dead. And I guess the Brood Mothers and the Brood Queens are somewhat sentient, but most of them are just subject to a overlord or a hive mind or something like that. But no, we're supposed to sympathize with Kerrigan because the Zerg are this, like, persecuted minority. And we get this later on once again where the Dominion's trying to cleanse Char from them, and it's this big, like, oh, the poor Zerg, they're being driven out of their home world. They're just innocent boys who didn't do nothing wrong. So that's all completely insufferable. I think what's even more insufferable than that is we're supposed to believe that this is redeemed Kerrigan, that she's not evil anymore, that she's moved past the Queen of Blades phase. And I know people will probably argue and say I may be reading too much into this, but I don't think so. I think that's pretty clearly what the intent of the story was. And her entire motivation, other than rescuing her boyfriend, is petty revenge. And to that end, she kills probably billions of people. Entire planets get taken out. She slaughters the Dominion's military. She slaughters countless Protoss. As far as we can determine, with the one exception of the, like, 3 ships she lets go away and not massacring the people of Augustgrad, I don't think there's anything to suggest that she hasn't killed billions of people in her quest to take out Minx, because he abandoned her as what he saw as a necessary sacrifice as part of a military campaign. And, like, we're supposed to accept that those millions of people, like, that was okay because Kerrigan had her feelings hurt. And because Minx is that bad, that to overthrow him, we have to basically kill half the human population of the entire sector. And to be honest, I think her character would have actually been more sympathetic if she had stayed a power-hungry psychopath. It would have made more sense then that she was willing to kill billions of people for petty revenge, or any of the other crazy stuff that she does in Heart of the Swarm. And I think it was just more interesting to have a villain who was just that completely and totally evil. If you wanted to do a different side of her, you maybe could have had Kerrigan doing what she did in Brood War and pretending to be nice again, or pretending that she was going to become human again to get Jim on her side and to kind of do a gay op against the Protoss or something. But as far as I can determine, literally just what happens is she gets the Zerg part of her removed. She's now like angsty and she wants Jim and she wants to get bad at that pesky Arcturus Minx. Then she becomes a Zerg again, kills billions of people, and that's pretty much it. I mean, Heart of the Swarm is just a total failure of storytelling. What saves it and why I'm bothering to replay it is the gameplay I do think is really good. This isn't really a gameplay review, but I do enjoy the story mode quite a bit. If you could just overlook the absurdity. Also, stuff like bringing Stukov back. Why did we have to bring Stukov back? Not that I didn't like Alexei Stukov, but it kind of cheapens his death, doesn't it? That he was like this good second officer. He was the loyal second in command of de Gaulle, who, in his pride, condemned him to death because he was tricked by Duran in one of Kerrigan's many backroom espionage deals. But he has to come back now for some reason, and it's just kind of a joke. And I don't know what they were thinking. I guess, I don't know if they were trying to also sell this to female players or they just thought that this would radiate better with an audience. Once again, I don't have an issue with there being a romantic story in a StarCraft game. That doesn't really bother me. I just don't think there was any real build-up in the first game. At least to suggest the fact that, like, Jim is just obsessively in love with her. And beyond that, I don't think there's, like, it just wasn't a good character arc for Kerrigan. If she was going to be redeemed, which I don't think she should have been, because that was kind of her whole character, is she just went down into the depths of darkness, and then she kind of discovered that in a twisted sense she liked it, and decided to stay that way. It could have been much better done. So that's my rant about Heart of the Swarm. I think it was something that was very poorly handled, and it's just too bad. Not a bad game, though, on the whole. Definitely a decent RTS. I'd still recommend playing StarCraft 2. Just the story is definitely a cut below Brood War.